Africa is quietly staging the most unexpected agricultural revolution of our time. Within a single generation, the continent faces a future where 2.5 billion people must eat, while climate shocks threaten to slash crop yields nearly 20%, and over half its farmland risks ruin. Yet from drought-resistant superplants to explosive avocado booms, something unprecedented is happening. Scientists and policymakers are stunned, and global food security may never be the same. But how did Africa, under immense pressure, flip the script so dramatically, and what did the rest of the world miss? To understand the stakes behind this transformation, we need to start at the very beginning. Africa stands at the center of a looming global food crisis, shaped by forces that are anything but abstract. The continent's population is racing toward 2.5 billion by 2050, more than double what it was at the turn of the century. Every year, nearly 30 million new mouths need feeding, a surge that eclipses the population growth rates of every other region on Earth. This is not just a demographic story, it is a question of survival. The United Nations warns that without radical changes, the continent's food demand will outpace its supply within a single generation. But the challenge does not stop at numbers. Climate models paint an even starker picture. By 2050, Africa's crop yields could fall by as much as 18%, even as demand soars. That means nearly 1 in 5 bags of maize, rice, or wheat could simply disappear from the harvest. On top of that, more than half of the continent's farmland faces the threat of being rendered unusable, lost to drought, soil exhaustion, or relentless heat. These are not distant possibilities. They are projections grounded in decades of satellite data and field research echoed by the World Bank and leading climate scientists worldwide. The math is brutal: more people, less food, and shrinking arable land. In practical terms, this translates into higher food prices, increased import bills, and rising pressure on governments already struggling to meet basic needs. It is a collision course between biology and climate with no margin for error. For policymakers, this is not a future problem. It is an emergency demanding immediate structural action. The numbers force a stark reckoning. Either overhaul food systems now or risk a continent-wide hunger crisis that could ripple across the globe. Yet, beneath these headline threats, the urgency is fueling a wave of innovation and reform. The scale of the challenge has become impossible to ignore. As Africa's leaders, scientists, and farmers confront the raw arithmetic of population and climate, they set the stage for a transformation that few outside the continent anticipated. Soil across Africa faces a silent but relentless assault. Centuries of farming, often without the chance to let land recover, have stripped away nutrients and left once fertile ground exposed to the wind and rain. By 2050, more than half of Africa's arable land could be so degraded it can no longer grow staple crops. This is not just a loss measured in acres. It is a permanent setback for entire regions where recovery can take generations, if it is possible at all. The drive to feed more people has pushed farmers to clear forests at a staggering rate. Agriculture now accounts for about 75% of all forest loss on the continent. Every year, millions of hectares of woodland vanish, replaced by fields that often yield less with each passing season. These forests are more than scenery. They anchor the soil, trap water, and act as a buffer against the extremes of drought and flood. Without them, the land erodes faster, rivers silt up, rain washes away the last traces of fertility, leaving only bare earth behind. This cycle of clearing and exhaustion creates a feedback loop. As the land grows poorer, more forest is cut to find new ground, accelerating the loss. In the Rift Valley and along the edges of the Congo Basin, satellite images show the scars, patchworks of brown, where green once stretched, unbroken. Scientists warn that this pattern, if left unchecked, could lock entire countries into a downward spiral of declining harvests and vanishing biodiversity. The consequences ripple far beyond the farm. As forests disappear, local climates shift. Rainfall becomes less predictable. Streams run dry sooner in the year, making droughts longer and more severe. Communities that once relied on wild foods, fuelwood, and traditional medicines lose their safety nets. And as soil quality collapses, farmers are forced to use more fertilizer and water just to keep yields steady, if they can afford it at all. This is the physical reality pressing in on African agriculture. The land itself is reaching a breaking point. No amount of tweaking planting dates or switching seed varieties can reverse the damage once soil is gone or forests are lost. The numbers are clear. Over half of the continent's farmland stands at risk, and 3/4 of forest loss comes from farming expansion. These are limits that cannot be ignored, and they demand solutions that go far beyond business as usual. In January 2025, African heads of state gathered in Kampala for an extraordinary summit that would set the pace for the continent's agricultural future. The result was the adoption of the Comprehensive Africa Agriculture Development Programme, known as CAADP, for the years 2026 through 2035. It is a unified roadmap with targets as precise as they are ambitious. For the first time, all 55 African Union member states committed to a single continent-wide agenda designed not just to respond to crisis, but to drive measurable change. The Kampala Declaration lays out 4 core goals for the next decade. By 2035, Africa aims to increase agri-food output by 45%. Post-harvest losses, which have long drained both food supplies and farmer incomes, are set to be cut in half. Intra-African trade in agricultural products and inputs is targeted to triple, breaking down old barriers and building new regional markets. And at least 35% of the value in the agri-food sector must come from food processed locally, not shipped abroad in raw form. Each of these targets is backed by a strategy for implementation, with clear benchmarks and timelines. This is more than a declaration, it is a financial and political commitment. The African Union plan calls for mobilizing $100 billion in public and private investment by 2035, a sum meant to unlock the productivity needed to keep pace with population growth and climate pressure. Member states have reaffirmed the pledge to allocate at least 10% of national budgets to agriculture, a principle dating back to the Maputo and Malabo declarations, but now tied to a more robust accountability system. Progress will be tracked through biennial reviews, with countries expected to report transparently on spending, outcomes and gaps. Commissioner Josefa Sacco, the African Union's lead on rural economy and agriculture, described the Kampala strategy as a theory of change with the power to move from vision to action. She stressed that this is not a repeat of past frameworks which too often left implementation to drift. Instead, the new plan comes with an action matrix, immediate steps for each country, and a mandate for private sector engagement at scale. Economic projections underscored the stakes. According to African Union estimates, reaching these targets could lift agricultural output by nearly half, triple the volume of food traded within Africa, and dramatically reduce the billions lost every year to waste. Countries that have previously aligned with CAADP frameworks have already seen faster agricultural GDP growth and more resilient food systems. The Kampala Declaration builds on this evidence, linking investment directly to measurable returns in productivity, job creation, and food security. For Africa's leaders, the message is clear. The continent's food future depends on hard commitments and real money. The Kampala roadmap is designed not just to inspire, but to deliver, providing the yardsticks by which progress or failure will be judged. On January 17, 2025, a quiet town in southwestern Ethiopia became the epicenter of Africa's new agricultural revolution. Jimma University unveiled its data science hub, a nerve center where artificial intelligence, machine learning, and climate data converge to tackle the continent's most pressing farming challenges. Here, rows of computers process satellite images, weather patterns, and soil readings, translating raw data into real-time advice for farmers hundreds of miles away. The goal is simple: help African farmers produce more, waste less, and adapt faster than ever before. This is not theory. Early studies show digital agriculture can push productivity up by 70% by 2050, according to McKinsey. The World Bank reports precision agriculture using tools like drones, soil sensors, and AI-driven planting models can cut input costs by 30% and boost yields by 25%. For a continent where every kilogram of food counts, these are not just numbers, they are lifelines. On cocoa farms in Ghana, drones buzz over treetops, scanning for signs of disease and mapping the best places to spray nutrients. In Kenya, smallholders use mobile platforms to check market prices, access microloans, and get expert advice, all from a basic phone. One click connects a maize farmer to a network of agronomists, weather alerts, and buyers, a far cry from the isolation of past decades. In Rwanda, AI-powered crop scouting tools developed through partnerships with Israeli startups help pinpoint pest outbreaks before they spread, saving harvests that once would have been lost. The Jimma Hub stands out as a symbol of this new era. Its teams have built climate datasets tailored to local realities, trained researchers from across Africa in advanced analytics, and piloted AI models that adapt to everything from drought cycles to shifting planting seasons. The results are already visible: higher yields, fewer losses, and a new sense of resilience among farmers facing unpredictable weather. These tools are not reserved for tech giants or industrial-scale farms. Across the continent, smallholders, the backbone of African agriculture, are adopting technology at a pace that surprises even seasoned observers. Mobile finance platforms, once used for simple money transfers, now offer insurance, credit, and even group buying power for seeds and fertilizer. Drones, once a novelty, are now routine on cocoa and rice fields from Ghana to Nigeria. The barriers that once kept African farmers on the margins are falling away, replaced by a digital infrastructure that puts information and opportunity in the hands of those who need it most. Underneath the headlines about population growth and climate risk, these practical innovations are quietly rewriting the rules of African agriculture. The transformation is not just happening in policy documents or conference halls, it is unfolding in real time, field by field, harvest by harvest. The technology leap is no longer a distant promise, it is the toolbox African farmers are reaching for today. Mozambique's cashew harvest tells a story in numbers that few could have imagined a decade ago. In the 2024 to 2025 season, farmers brought in 195,400 tons of raw cashew nuts, nearly matching the country's all-time record from the 1970s. The turnaround is staggering. Just after independence, annual production collapsed to barely 15,000 tons. Now, the government projects 218,900 tons for the coming year, a leap that places Mozambique alongside Africa's top cashew producers. Export earnings reflect this momentum. In 2024, cashew exports earned a record $98.2 million, up from $57.3 million the previous year, and less than $30 million just 3 years ago. That's more than a threefold increase in export revenue in 4 seasons. Behind these figures are 1.4 million producers, most of them smallholders, each tending a handful of trees on family plots. Their work is the backbone of rural economies, supporting more than 1 million families and thousands of jobs in processing plants and transport. In Maputo province alone, over 32,000 families depend on cashew as a main source of income. The government is betting even bigger on the future. A 10-year development plan now underway aims to quadruple production and expand processing to over 482,000 tons a year. Investments in seedlings are part of the push. Nearly 4.4 million cashew seedlings were distributed in 2024, covering 87,000 hectares and reaching tens of thousands of new growers, including more than 16,000 female-headed households. The story is just as dramatic in Kenya's avocado fields. Community nurseries have planted over 5,000 seedlings across 13 schools since 2016. Youth, especially girls, lead the planting and care, turning once degraded land into productive orchards. These smallholder plots, often just 2 to 4 acres, now supply local markets and provide vital income for families. The ripple effect is visible in rural schools, where students grow, harvest, and sell seedlings, learning business skills and climate resilience along the way. Each figure, each farm, is a signal. Africa's agricultural transformation is not a distant hope. It's measured in tons, dollars, and millions of hands at work. A new generation is rewriting the story of African agriculture, and the world is barely paying attention. Across rural Uganda and Tanzania, young farmers are using a WhatsApp-based AI tool called Virtual Agronomist to diagnose crop diseases and get instant advice, sometimes in the middle of the night in their own languages. In just 2 years, this digital assistant has reached over 1 million users, helping to close knowledge gaps that once kept yields low and losses high. The tool's success is more than a tech headline. It is a sign of how quickly African youth are leapfrogging old barriers, drawing on mobile-first solutions that outpace adoption rates in parts of Europe and North America. At the same time, West Africa has quietly become the world's cocoa powerhouse. Ghana and Côte d'Ivoire now supply more than 60% of all cocoa beans traded globally. This dominance isn't a fluke. It is the result of coordinated farmer networks, traceability platforms, and pricing reforms that have stabilized incomes in a notoriously volatile market. While the global chocolate industry depends on these beans, stories about African control over this billion-dollar supply chain rarely make front-page news outside business circles. The real power shift is happening behind the scenes, as African producers set standards and negotiate with multinational buyers on their own terms. So, why is this transformation so underreported? Part of the answer lies in old narratives. Western media often frames African agriculture through the lens of aid, crisis, or subsistence, overlooking the scale of innovation and market influence now underway. Development journals and trade reports document the rise of tech-savvy youth and the economic muscle of African commodities, but mainstream coverage lags far behind. As a result, most consumers have no idea that the cocoa in their chocolate bar or the cashews in their snack mix likely came from a continent that is no longer just catching up. It is setting the pace. The stakes are global. When African youth embrace AI-driven farming, or when West African growers steer the cocoa market, the ripple effects reach far beyond local fields. Food security, commodity prices, and even the future of rural employment are all being shaped by decisions made in places that traditional media rarely covers. The world's blind spot isn't just about missed headlines. It is about missing the story of a continent quietly shifting the balance of power in global agriculture. Right now, Africa's farms are rewriting the world's agricultural map, quietly but decisively. As global food insecurity rises and climate volatility intensifies, the innovations emerging here don't just feed local communities, they shape future markets and resilience worldwide. The world is watching, but not everyone is keeping up. Sometimes the next breakthrough grows where few ever thought to look. Share your take in the comments below.